Hi, I'm Andrew Rich, and if you're like me, you look at the state of modern wrestling discourse and think, wow, what a cesspool. That's why I'm here to tell you about Music of the Mat Remix. That's right, your favorite wrestling music podcast is back with a new format, where I bring on a guest and we play songs related to wrestling-themed topics. It could be a wrestling reference, a wrestling concept, a wrestling pun, things of that nature. Now you might be saying, Andrew, that is a very, very tenuous connection to pro wrestling on a wrestling podcast network. Is this just an excuse to hang out with your friends and talk about music and ignore the rest of the wrestling landscape? Yes. Yes, it is. So listen to Music of the Mat Remix on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, available on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast player of choice.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, as always, Jesse Collings. And joining me once again, he has watched an extremely large amount of WWE WrestleManias in a very short period of time. His brain is just mush, so we're inviting him onto the show to examine him for scientific purposes only. He's our Louisiana correspondent. It's Suit Williams.
Hello. How goes it?
So now the reason you're on the show, obviously, is because you've been doing the Williams Watches WrestleMania series on your own blog. Now, how long have you had the blog? Like 6 months, a year,
We're
maybe?
we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary in about a week or so. April 22nd, I believe.
Yes. And this is Williams Watches Wrestling. This is Suit's own personal kind of blog. It's not affiliated with F4W or Voice of Wrestling or any of these other outlets you write with. You have 100% editorial responsibility for this blog, correct?
Yes, it is my site, and I choose what goes on it. I recently thought the other day, wait, it is my site, so I can just talk about like Severance if I wanted to.
Yes, you could.
And I really do want to, so look out for Williams Watches Severance maybe in a few
Yeah,
days.
so just branching out, not even going to be talking about wrestling anymore. You're
Yeah.
going to be like the flagship.
Yeah, it's suitwilliams.com.
Yeah,
I can do what I want. I'm Sue Williams.
hell yeah. So you came up with a decision to watch and review all of the WrestleManias in order, which you have now completed, correct? You finished earlier this week.
Yes, they aren't all up yet. They're WrestleMania as we when you're listening to this, WrestleMania 39 Sunday will most likely be up, and then WrestleMania 40 will be going up next week, going into WrestleMania 41 on the Easter weekend. So
Mhm.
I'm finished watching them, but they're still rolling out. Going up to Mania this year.
Why did you decide to do this to yourself?
I decided to do it because the purpose of the blog was really to just give me a reason to like watch a lot of old wrestling that I hadn't had the chance to, or that I hadn't really given myself the time to do. There's a series on Voices of Wrestling, the Wrestling 101, that where they're like going through like foundational matches that like wrestling fans should watch to get like a full scope of the wrestling world. And that site came about because I had never watched Brett versus Owen from WrestleMania 10, and Rich decided that we need a whole series on matches everybody should watch.
Yeah, Suit, you're so uncultured that you forced this whole system to be launched. Because how dare you have not seen Brett versus Owen from WrestleMania 10?
I mean, he was right. It's one of the three best WrestleMania matches of all time. So Rich was right. I'll give Rich Craich his props there.
Right. So, and that brings my question. Like, I have seen, I believe, every WrestleMania. Now, I did not watch them all in order. I did not watch them all like within a relatively equal time period. But just going through, I was like, I think I've seen every single one of these shows. It's possible that there are some matches that I have not watched that I've only ever seen like a few matches from some of these shows. But I think I have over the course of my wrestling fandom uh seen all of these WrestleManias in one form or the other. Now, granted, a lot of them probably from like WrestleMania 22 onward have been kind of as a current wrestling fan. I have not gone back and watched any of these WrestleManias. Like I would say the most recent WrestleMania that I have watched more than one time is like probably WrestleMania 22 or WrestleMania 23. Like I have not gone back and watched certainly all of like WrestleMania 31. Um I don't really watch stuff like that. What was that kind of experience like to go back and watch stuff that you watched live in person, especially like, in the last 15 years or so of WrestleManias?
I would say that being removed from the context of the time has helped a lot of these shows out. Like being like knee deep in everything and the conversation surrounding it, like it made my memories of a lot of these shows worse. And then when I go back to watch them, it's like, all right, they weren't great, but they weren't as bad as I remember them being. Like, context made them worse at the time. And the further we remove ourselves from the context of it, the better they end up being. Marginally. Most of the time, it's marginally, but there was the Undertaker Roman Reigns WrestleMania main event that I thought that live at the time at the end of I think it was 7-hour show that I genuinely thought was one of the worst matches I had ever seen. I thought it was just this pathetic, just terrible match. I went back and watched it now. It's like a 2.5 star match. Like it's not great or anything, but like the Undertaker doesn't look as pathetic as I remember him being.
Yes, this is WrestleMania 33 in case people are
33,
wondering.
yes. The one with the roller coaster stage. I find the stages help me remember these shows a lot more.
Well,
Because
it's WrestleMania 33, the ultimate thrill ride.
yes, yes. But yeah, it's the 30s especially is where like being removed from everything does help it a little bit. I will say WrestleMania 30, I was at live. That show had a live bump from me because that show going back wasn't very good. Like going from Daniel Bryan and Triple H to the rest of it. Let's see if I can find it here. Of course,
Yeah.
I have a Google Sheets of everything with my star
This is, of
rating.
course, WrestleMania 30. Let the good times roll.
Absolutely, or the French phrase, if you can say it. Uh, I can't, so I won't. But
All right. Well, I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, nor do I speak French. We'll have to call in Warren Hayes just to say that one thing, and then we'll kick him off again.
yes, we'll have to pull him off that poor baby seal to teach us some French.
um, yeah, I'm actually surprised, like you said, that like going back in like the shows are actually like, especially the more modern shows are actually better. I guess removed from like the day to day discourse surrounding them, and really like seeing the build firsthand and kind of, but just kind of examining the end product because, um, I don't know. I guess I just don't think highly of the product itself. So if I was just going in and watching a lot of these matches cold, um, it would be a difficult watch. My take here, just overall, when we think about WrestleMania, is that like WrestleMania is like really overrated from like a quality perspective. Is that a lot of WrestleManias are bad, and a lot of them are filled with a bunch of time filling, boring dreck. And
Yeah,
there's occasionally a really memorable match or moments that kind of carries the strength of the WrestleMania brand name throughout history. But my take would be like if I, and again, maybe your experience is different because you just watched them all, but like if I were to watch all these again, I'd be like, man, there's a lot of shit that I have forgotten about. And now I'm watching it. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I watching this? Um, I don't know, John Cena Bray Wyatt match or something. I'm just looking at the card from WrestleMania 30 now. So I'm just like
yeah.
naming random stuff. Like, Why am I watching the Vicky Guerrero Invitational match on WrestleMania 30, which AJ
The
Lee won?
the death spot of all death spots, because that was right after the Undertaker streak ended, and
Yeah.
everyone's jaws were still on the floor.
So what do you think about that match, the Brock Lesnar Undertaker match? Watching it now, knowing the finish of that match.
Well, I wanted to hit on your first point of
Yeah.
Mania being kind of overrated as a concept. I have a list because I've rated all the matches and I just logged it on this Google sheet here. There's only about 60 or so matches that I have at like 4 stars or higher throughout the 440 some odd matches that have happened at WrestleMania ever. So you're more likely to get an average match than like a great one, which is, you assume that that's what makes the great one special. But yeah, you're not very likely to see like high end like match of the like voices of wrestling match of the year list matches at WrestleMania. But when you do, they are pretty special ones, like Taker, Shawn, Owen, Brett, you know Hart,
Yeah.
Brett Austin, things
I
like
think
that.
part of it for me is also like the really high end matches that people talk about a lot. For whatever reason, a lot. Some of them have never clicked with me, so I never have as strong of a connection with some of the big ones. Like uh, the Undertaker Shawn matches are obviously really good. Austin versus Bret Hart is my favorite WWE match of all time. But things like the two Bryan Danielson matches from WrestleMania 30, I don't care for either of those matches. That Triple H one I watch like once every few years, and I still am like, I don't get it with that match because that's a really like highly thought of, um
Well regarded.
well regarded match. It has 8.91 on Cage Match. But it's like one of those ones where it's like I gave it 3 stars in my live review for Wrestling Inc. at the time, which people can still look at. Um, and I still feel like it's like a 3-star match now. It just has never clicked with me. Another match that has never clicked with me the way it's clicked with other people is the Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit triple threat match from WrestleMania 20, which has always been held in high regard. In just from the first time I watched that match like 20 years ago, I have never, it's not a bad match, but I've never gone and be like, whoa, that's one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. I've never really quite gotten that match. So there's a few matches here and there that I think most people consider like really elite WrestleMania matches, just have never clicked with me for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's you're gonna be on the island with some like big time matches. I'll tell you the one that I'm on the island for, and that's Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania 21.
Yeah, see, I really love that match.
It's not a bad match or a middling match by any means. I went 3 3/4 on it, but like watching all the shows in order, it feels like Shawn and Kurt kind of just went out there and played the hits. Like it feels like a match where being in the context really helped it a lot more. Like it's one of those where being there at the time and place, it's the first time these two have wrestled, and you don't know how they're gonna go, and you don't know who's gonna win. That that lack of knowledge kind of helps it out a lot. Because going into it, I knew who won, I knew the finish, and so just watching it on the work beforehand just felt like, yeah, man, these guys have done better. Like I conservatively think there are 6 or 7 matches Shawn has had better than that one at WrestleMania.
Yeah, see, it's funny you say that because that's like, I would say that's one of my 5 favorite WWE matches of all time.
Yeah.
Now, there's part of that is like child nostalgia. WrestleMania 21 was kind of like the first WrestleMania I watched. Um, So, there's definitely some certain nostalgia that's clouding that, but that's one of my favorite, instantly one of my favorite WWE matches of all time. If you were like just to ask me, like name 5, that would definitely immediately come up along with Austin versus Bret Hart from WrestleMania 13. Um, but the Brock Lesnar versus Undertaker match, which people can, again, my review for WrestleMania 30 is still live on WrestlingInc.com, or the husk that remains of WrestlingInc.com.
Pew pew.
Yeah, whatever. Um, Brock, so that Brock Lesnar versus Undertaker match, I rated that 4 stars in real time. I was just like, that was a great match. And I guess I was very, very wrong about that because everyone hated it and Undertaker got like a huge concussion and was a mess. I don't know why I gave it 4 stars at the time. I assure people I was paying attention and watching the match when I did that. But obviously, how did you feel about that match? What was your honest opinion having now watching it now? Now you were there live, right?
Yes, I was.
Yes.
So being there live, it was really boring, and I almost went to go to the bathroom because I assumed the Undertaker was gonna win. He didn't, I didn't, and then Undertaker didn't, and I was there to get the picture of the 21-1 on the screen, which, yeah, that's one of the most shocking things I've seen in wrestling. Um, Certainly live. But yeah, going back and watching it, that is just not a very interesting or good match because people aren't really into Brock yet. Like the Suplex City stuff hadn't been like the Brock stuff had been really cold. Like because they did the Cena stuff and then he disappeared, and then there was the Triple H match, which was a, a disgrace. I That was just terrible.
Yeah. So he
And then
has
he
the
does the Triple H
yeah.
WrestleMania match. There's the Punk stuff, which is really good, but then Punk leaves, and then he's kind of just around with like Big Show or whatever, and then you get to the Undertaker match, so people just aren't like into Brock really, and then the Undertaker just, he had a massive concussion, so he just wasn't really doing anything, and so that match sucked, but it's the worst match I'll ever recommend people watch because of that moment of like legitimate shock that got everybody at the end of Brock just beating him and like just the gasps from the crowd. Like, just it was a super real moment of like emotion and shock that was really cool. It just came at the end of a really shitty match.
Yeah, I mean, I think in real time that was probably my thought, which was like this was an incredible experience because the Undertaker lost. And maybe the 25 minutes that led up to him losing was not particularly interesting, but it's like at the time it was um super shocking. I remember at the time, I feel like I wasn't I was definitely surprised that he lost, but I was kind of one of those people that figured that he eventually was going to lose at WrestleMania. Even though it was such an anchor for WrestleMania in terms of like how they were going to build WrestleMania every year, which was going to be who's going to challenge to beat the streak. But in a lot of ways, I felt like they had exhausted kind of every possible angle they could do in terms of like who's going to beat the streak. And it's Shawn Michaels going to put his career on the line and he's not going to do it. Then Triple H is going to try and then he's not going to be able to do it. And they had all these kind of different wrestlers try to do it. And obviously, I didn't expect Brock to win. I feel like it would. I thought it was probably going to be a younger wrestler, but I probably wasn't as surprised as maybe other people were. I'm trying to make it not seem like, oh, of course I knew the Undertaker was going to lose. I'm not an idiot,
Yeah.
but I do. I remember just kind of coming away from that being like, whoa, I can't believe they did it, but I kind of get why they did it, and I knew that they had to do it. But at the time, it was kind of crazy because, like you said, Brock was kind of at I guess with Brock's second run in WWE, it's probably easily remembered as he comes back. He has that great program with Cena, and then he goes away, and then he beats he has the match with Triple H, and then he beats the Undertaker, and then he beats he squashes John Cena at WrestleMania, and he's like super over and all that kind of stuff. But you're right, he did kind of cool off at that point. And there was some kind of Brock resentment from the fan base that
Because
he kind of recaptures mainly because he wins this match.
he was part of that like part-timer culture that had really taken WWE over at the time, and like the build of that match was terrible too, so nobody really thought they're not going to do it on this build when there have been like other great ones.
Yeah, it's like a
And
half-ass build, right?
yeah, and it's that plus the great Cena squash is what gave Brock the juice for the rest of his run. Because after that Cena squash, Brock's like, oh, it's Brock. We're in Suplex City, and then he has the great match with Roman at 31, which is still great. It's more of a one-man show than you remember, and I'm sure we might have some talk about Roman Reigns later, but that's a great match. The Dean Ambrose match at 32, I was shocked at how good that match ended up being. It was
Because that match does not have a good reputation now.
critically panned. Let me see what I gave it. I went 3.5 or 3.75 on it. I remember liking that match a lot more than I remember liking
it
it.
has a 3.34 on Cage Match.
Yeah, I went 3.75 on it out of 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be like a 7 on it.
7.5.
Yeah, because Ambrose got a lot more in than I remember. I just remember it being a one-sided Brock squash, and instead it's scrappy John Moxley going up against scrappy frat boy John Moxley going up against Brock Lesnar, and it turns out that was pretty fun.
Yeah, and I know Moxley has really panned that match in his. I think part of that part. So I think the legend of that match is Brock was entertaining a return to MMA.
I think he did. I think this was around UFC 200 that he did. So
Yeah,
he wasn't gonna do anything.
yeah, he
Super
basically didn't want to
crazy.
do anything, and Moxley had all these ideas because it's Moxley and it's a street fight. And Brock basically is like, I don't want to do any of that because I don't want to get hurt. So I'm gonna dump you around a little bit and then pin you, which is kind of like the reputation of that match. But it's interesting going back and watching it afterwards with knowing that it's not going to be a good match. It was surprisingly good.
Yeah, if you go in thinking it's a 1-star, one-sided squash, you're gonna be surprised. It's a lot better than that. Brock does give Ambrose a lot, but he wins because he was the bigger star at the time.
I'm asking this because I'm down on I'm probably the low man on almost all of his WrestleMania matches. What do you think is Triple H's best WrestleMania match?
The Benoit 3-way, which it's gotta eat. I think that's the best WrestleMania main event of all time.
Okay.
The best last match.
Yep.
How badly do you think it eats him alive that he can never talk about it?
He probably thinks some of his other matches are way better.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he thinks everything he does is great. But
Yeah.
Outside of that, look, I might be on the island with this one, but the Ronda Rousey debut match at WrestleMania 34 with her and Kurt Angle versus Hunter and Steph, I adore that match. I think Ronda's fantastic, just generally speaking, because there's a match she had with Charlotte at during her second comeback at Mania 38 that it has this terrible reputation, but I watched that match and I was like, holy crap, this is fantastic. So maybe it's just me being a Ronda guy, but I think that Triple H did really well in that Ronda match as well. And then after that, I'd go maybe the Bryan match too for the top 3. So
Yeah, the Ronda stuff I've largely blacked out from my memory because that's in that wheelhouse of yes, I watched all of those shows, but I don't remember any of it because it didn't happen during my childhood and none of it was super memorable. So I just can't remember a random show match that happened 5 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah, that match is well regarded. It has almost an 8 on Cage Match. I don't think you're on an island really liking that match. I just remember Ronda putting the armbar on Stephanie and Stephanie's blocking it using and the announcers are talking about how Stephanie's got her MMA training to block this move and I was like, this is so unrealistic. I know it's wrestling, it's whatever.
Jiu-Jitsu Stephanie McMahon.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't tolerate that. I don't care how good the match is.
She had learned it from Hunter, who in the Brock Lesnar match, the terrible one from WrestleMania 29, he puts on a Kimura that UFC heavyweight champion Brock Lesnar can't get out of.
Yeah, it's It's tough. That stuff's tough. I know it's probably like really impressive as their first match, and given Stephanie's like relative lack of experience, it's actually really well done in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. But just there's some psychology elements to that match that I can't get behind. I was
But
honestly gonna.
there's some other stuff there too that I think is really good because Hunter stooged for Ronda a lot, and there
Yeah,
was a one point where like he like sets the referee to the side, and he puts his hands up, and then Ronda just goes off on him, and he's just pinballing in the corner for her, and the crowd's going insane. Like I thought
yeah.
that was just a match that because I was at that one too. That was in New Orleans. I thought that may have been like okay, live bump. It was really fun. No, that match was just awesome.
Yeah,
Even with like stiff rubber man Kurt Angle.
yeah. Ronda's easily like the best worker in that match, and it's their first match ever.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, I think honestly, like I think if I were to rate them again, I'm low on most of them. Is I like the WrestleMania 21 match against Batista just because I think it's like a really effective match in terms of like
Yes.
this is the culmination of like a really well done storyline. It's not as long as it probably could have threatened to be, given it's a WrestleMania main event with Triple H. Um,
Hmm.
but I think it was a really effective match. Um, and I know there's the blade job and everything like that. So that's probably honestly, like if you were to ask, like that's probably my favorite, just because I'm not high on a lot of the other matches, even though the triple threat match with Benoit and Michaels is probably the best.
I'll
Back
say this. One match that gets critically panned, rightfully so, but is actually like a pretty good match itself, is Triple H Booker T. like,
oh yeah.
oh, that's like that. I think is his best WrestleMania match up to that point. And man, it's just a shame the finish was what it was because it would have been like it was a really good match. And then he hits the pedigree and lays down for a minute and then he pins him.
I'm looking at the cage match for WrestleMania 21 now, and it has Dave's ratings. Like Dave was I wish we had this Dave now instead of the Dave that we have currently. Like Dave gave
Yeah.
that Triple H Batista match 2 3/4 of a star, and he gave the John Cena JBL match before it 1 1/4 stars.
Yeah, man.
Like that man didn't give a fuck about what anyone would say about his star ratings back then, because those are
I'm
savage ratings. I'm not even like disagreeing with him, even though I just talked about how I like the Batista Triple H match. Like he would never in a million years. That's like a 4 star match now.
yeah, man. I appreciate that Dave is he's not like the old timer that gets grumpy about wrestling.
Yeah,
Like he
which is
likes
kind of a
everything now.
miracle given all of his contemporaries are like that.
But it's tough that he like likes everything so much that it kind of like that the scale's kind of screwed up now. Like, because I was around where he was. I was 3 1/4 on Batista Triple H. Like, it was good.
Mhm.
It was good, and it put Batista over strong. So 2 3/4, I could see that being a little lower on it.
Based on the scale, 2 3/4 is an above average match. It's a slightly above average match.
Yeah, Cena JBL. That one's tough. Like I went 3 stars on that. I actually think it could have like they could have done a little bit more,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
like
only 11
two,
minutes
three
long.
minutes. But I thought, for the time it was fine.
I mean, that match is also like in one of the reasons I think WrestleMania 21 is really interesting in the sense of like both of those final two matches like are just like we've got a younger guy and we're gonna put him over like really strong.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna build the rest of our company around these two guys, which they kind of effectively did. It was really effective booking in terms of getting to WrestleMania where we're going to crown our two new guys to be champions for a while and build the rest of the company around that. And they've never really succeeded in doing that like ever again.
They eventually got there with Roman, but Roman wasn't a young guy by that point. Like they
And
do it with
and in
Roman
Roman,
at
yeah, but Roman wasn't like say wasn't they gave up like they crowned him at WrestleMania and then they like had to reset him a couple times and he eventually got over and it wasn't really because of anything that happened at WrestleMania
yeah.
specifically. I just feel like this was like their most effective time period in terms of it's probably among the most effective booking Vince McMahon has ever done is WrestleMania 21, where he's like, we need new guys. We need to build around, we can't rely on our Attitude Era stars anymore. We're losing guys to Hollywood. Guys are getting older. Guys are getting injured. We need some new blood. And like, I'm going to pick these two guys, who obviously he was huge fans of and obviously had the look that he wanted and everything like that. But we're going to slowly build them up and they're going to win their titles at WrestleMania, one on SmackDown, one on Raw. And that's the way it's going to be. And they really effectively stuck to that. And obviously it was successful. John Cena became the biggest star in the company, and Batista, not quite as big of a star, but a hugely effective wrestler, I would say, from that moment on.
Yeah, I'd agree. I would agree. I Speaking of John Cena, I think being pulled out of the context of the time, John Cena might be the guy that's like helped the most by this. Like it's either him or Charlotte Flair because
Oh yeah, you're seeing the
like
best of Charlotte for sure.
I've like done a full 180 on Charlotte Flair. Like I think there's a chance that Tiffany Stratton match could be great. It depends on what Charlotte wants to do. But yeah, like John Cena, like his main events, super energetic, always have like he never loses the crowd the way like Roman would later. Not to dump on Roman all the time,
Oh, we could do that. That's one of the core pillars of the show.
But yeah, the Cena Triple H match I thought was really fun, like interplay with the crowd. And I also thought it was interesting watching Triple H's like Jedi mind trick with the fans get started. Like he was setting John Cena up to take a spot, but then his quad blew out before the next year, so that had to wait. But the Cena Shawn Michaels match, I don't ever hear people talk about that as like an all-time great WrestleMania
from
match.
from WrestleMania 23. Yep.
Yeah, I think that match is such a phenomenal stadium main event. Like, because they're back in, it's 23, it's back in the stadium. They're at Ford Field in Detroit, and it's just this big, just bombastic back and forth. I adore that match. That's in my top 5 of my top 50 WrestleMania matches because I have to make a list because the one WWE's doing on their YouTube is a disgrace. So, spoiler alert for that. That's coming to voicesofwrestling.com
Yeah,
soon.
I've seen like the YouTube thumbnails. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what their goal is with the 50 top 50 or whatever, but I don't know if it's good or bad. It's a WWE list, so who cares?
It's not great.
Is
Brett and
that
Owen with 11. That's like, come on.
and then like
I
some
don't
like
know
mid
what's
match from
happening.
like 2 years ago was higher than that. I
I
assume.
th- that it may have been the Becky main event. I think
Well, it's a
not.
historic main event. Women
Yeah.
main evented one of the nights of WrestleMania. Suit. How dare you?
Yeah. That Ronda was good in that match too, but that was just it was like 1 a.m. local time and it was after like 7. Like that's the one where everybody was like, this is ridiculous. We have to do something about this. And they cut the show into 2 nights after that.
Yeah, I mean that Cena Shawn Michaels match. You're right about given it sounds preposterous given it was the main event of WrestleMania and is two of the most famous, well-regarded wrestlers in modern wrestling history. But you're right, it is it's never talked about as like a great match. And I'm with you. I really enjoy it. I don't know if it would be like one of my top 5 favorite WrestleMania matches all time, but it's a very, very good match, and it's definitely on the short list in terms of like WrestleMania main event matches from a quality perspective. It has an 8.44 on Cage Match, so it's a regard. The people who are rating it on a Cage Match at least also feel like it's a really strong match. But when you think of WrestleMania 23, people all think of the Trump McMahon angle, which was obviously hugely successful and was like the, quote unquote, real main event of that show. I would actually argue it's the ECW originals versus the New Breed is probably the real main event of that show, but that's the one, that's the moment, that's the match that everyone kind of remembers from WrestleMania, and the Shawn Michaels John Cena match is kind of weirdly forgotten about.
Yeah, like I think Cena, like Big Match John, like we made fun of JBL for that on commentary, but he really came through on a lot of these shows as just like an always rock solid. You know, the floor is 4 unless you're the Miz.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's just really great stuff.
I'm a big fan of not as much the second one, but I think that first Rock match is like excellent it given the limitations of what you had, where it was like the Rock's first match in a long time. Neither guy has like necessarily an amazing in-ring reputation. There was obviously a lot of hype around it, but I feel like that match is like exactly what it needed to be successful. And so I'm a big fan of that one. The second one I feel like isn't nearly as good, but that first one from I think WrestleMania 28 I think is really
Yeah.
good as well.
I think I think the second one of WrestleMania 29 is very impressive because they had to follow that terrible Triple H Brock Lesnar match that we keep bringing up. So the crowd was like stone dead. And so those two just went out there and like, all right, we got to get these guys back. Let's just throw some bombs. And they do a ton of finishers. And I get like, you know, it's not really like a like structured match from that regard. But in terms of getting like a dead crowd back into things for for the main event, I think those two did a really good job with that context added.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking of the bad Undertaker Triple H match from WrestleMania 27. Um, it's not the Hell in a Cell. It's the one
Yeah,
before
the
the
one
Hell in a Cell.
before.
I despise that, and that's a match that has good reputation too. But I remember hating that match in real time. It's so long. It's like if you ever wanted to watch a match of 28 minutes of Paul Levesque in control, that's what it is. And then the Undertaker like wins on like a last gasp.
He
And you
gets
know,
the Hell's Gate on.
yeah, and it was like, oh, he barely survived because Triple H was beating his ass, and then so that's like the storyline for the run back for the Hell in a Cell match, which the Hell in a Cell match I haven't seen in quite a while. I'd probably dislike it now because I'm so dead to like the WWE melodrama, but I remember at the time really enjoying
Yeah.
it. What did you think about that Hell in a Cell match?
Well, I'll talk about them both because I really wanted to hate the Triple H Undertaker match, the first one.
Yeah.
I didn't. I went like 3 3/4 on it. I
Mhm.
thought it was very good with some flaws. And then the Hell in a Cell, that match, Shawn Michaels is the most annoying person alive in that match. He is doing all the overacting, but they overcome it with the context of the year before. They do some big near falls. The crowd's like living and dying by the whole thing. I thought I thought it was on par with Rock Cena, and I gave that my match of the night, the Triple H Taker Cell match. There, it's a match you want to hate, but it's just too good, and you just like, all right, I gotta give. I had to hand it to
Yeah, I
ISIL.
was gonna say you
This
gotta
was
hand
good.
it to them. What was the worst? What do you have a worst match? Like the worst match on WrestleMania that you watched?
Oh, I've got a list. I have all my duds in bold and highlighted. Um, so if you wanna just have a conversation about all of them, and then I can just pick the worst turd out of the bunch.
Yeah, because we're talking about so obviously we're also talking about 40 years of wrestling history, right? So
Yes.
if you're going back and watching something from WrestleMania 2, the the quality I think is going to be different. It's not necessarily going to be better or worse, but just you kind of got to use a different standard
Yeah.
for what it is. There's also matches that are just really bad, and then there are matches that like underachieve in a big spot that feel like they're really, really bad, even if they're maybe not as bad as like a undercard match. Um, the reason I brought it up is because I'm looking at a cage match from WrestleMania 27, and I see this Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler match that has a 0.19 on cage match, which has to be close to the lowest rated match on cage match. Um,
Yep, that's one of my duds. That match personally insulted me for how both being as long as it went and then doing a BS finish to run the feud back because, that was popping all the house shows.
Special referee Steve Austin, a great use of Steve Austin too. So that whole feud and like the whole era of heel Michael Cole, like
Awesome.
definitely plays a key role in my disillusionment in going from being like a lifelong WWE fan into becoming like the cynical person that is now before you. That
It
was like
sucks.
just yeah, it's one of the most destructive, like, for me personally, it's, like, one of the most destructive things that's ever happened to my wrestling fandom is, like, the era of heel Michael Cole because he was inescapable. He did commentary and he did his act all the time, and I don't think a single person ever liked it, and it ends up being, like, this trigger for this WrestleMania match, which Cage Match is telling me was 13 minutes and 48 seconds. I thought it's at least 30 minutes long. It feels so long and because it's all shtick, right? It's not like they're
Yeah.
going in there and locking up and
Well, no, Michael Cole takes over. He gets heat on Jerry Lawler's ankle. It like the whole segment's like 25 minutes with the entrances and the post match and all that.
how was the crowd?
It's
Was the crowd hot for it at all? Like,
no.
yeah.
No, they were watching Michael Cole put an ankle lock on Jerry Lawler like your 6-year-old sister trying to. Like it's horrible. And like the only pop is when Lawler wins. And then they reverse the decision with the anonymous GM. So it's like, oh, we can't even have that. And then Austin has to stun Josh Matthews to try and save it. It's horrendous. It's one of the worst Mania matches ever. Alongside, and I've control F dud on my
Spreadsheet,
spreadsheet
yeah.
here. So from WrestleMania 2, as you said, Roddy Piper versus Mr. T in a boxing
Yeah,
match.
this is a famously very bad match.
They do so WrestleMania 2, there's an hour in New York, an hour in Chicago, an hour in LA. Mr. T from Chicago is the main event of the New York hour. Oh boy. And then you get at I think 15 minutes of these two doing shtick boxing, and it's terrible and it's long, and Piper just hits Mr. T with a stool for the DQ, and nobody cares. That whole New York hour is atrocious.
Yeah, WrestleMania 2 is a really interesting show in terms of like WrestleMania 1 is bad.
Yeah, it's just
Um,
an MSG show.
yeah, and it has like they just go like really over the top with like celebrities, and it's kind of one of those like I think it's really like it was hugely successful, and like obviously Vince gambled on it and things like that. So it's like a historically significant show, but I almost kind of want to downplay its historical significance because it's really bad and like it kind of doesn't really resemble what WrestleMania would become. I would say, and then WrestleMania 2 is kind of like a further experimentation, right? They do three different shows from three different venues. Um, it's got like all the celebrities and stuff like that. Then you got the Mr. T versus Roddy Piper boxing match. Um, like to me, WrestleMania 3 is like really like the important WrestleMania that
Yes.
taught that is what the legend of WrestleMania becomes. The first two are kind of just like weird experimental shows. Like it's kind of like a band where like their first two albums are kind of experimental and you don't really know what their sound is like. And then the third album is like, whoa, here they come. That's what WrestleMania feels like to me.
I agree. Like, see, like something that like really impressed me, like going through all these, is how quickly they got like the act down and got the act together. Because Mania One is, it's an MSG show and it's a mess, and then Mania Two, they're trying to go between all these shows, and there's technical problems, and there's problems with the video, and there's Vince McMahon trying not to lose his mind next to Dick Ebersol's wife, Susan St. James. Like you hear it in his voice. He wants to go off, but he's got to like hold it back, hold it back.
The this boxing match, which I'm looking on Cage Match. So this was like a whole mess. Like I think Roddy Piper had all these ideas for how he wanted to do it, and then Mr. T didn't want to do any of them, and so they kind of end up going out there with like no real plan.
Oh,
Um,
I can tell.
Yeah, and it's kind of like I think they didn't get along at that point because they at WrestleMania 1 they do great work together, right? The Mr. T and Roddy Piper and the tag team match and things like that. And it was hugely
Yeah.
successful. And so they run it back. But they don't do a wrestling match. They're gonna do a boxing match for some reason. And it's gonna be a boxing match that's gonna end in DQ. And I'm just looking at this. This almost seems like a typo, but I'm sure it's real. The judges for this boxing match, Sue, do you know who these people
Yes.
are? Like I like
Oh, I wrote it down. Let me
so
pull it
so
up.
no, I have it right here. I can show it to you right now. Who these
Yeah,
box. So our judges are people with really deep connections to pro wrestling. The first one
absolutely.
is Cab Calloway, who is a big band leader from the 1940s. He must have been really old. Um, for some reason, he's a celebrity, I guess. I don't know if he was still a household name in the 80s, but he was. So he's one of the judges. What is his connection to Mr. T, Roddy Piper, or boxing? Who knows? The second one is Daryl Dawkins, Chocolate Thunder, who is I guess, fairly memorable NBA player. I think he was probably close to retirement by 1984
Yeah,
or
he was on the
1986.
famous net Chocolate Thunder Daryl
Yeah, he
Dawkins.
was on the Sixers. Um, and okay, so is that why he's there? He's on the Nets at that point.
Yes, he was announced as being on the New Jersey Nets
Okay,
at
so
that
he's like
point.
a local sports team player at that point. So I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
he's the one that makes the most sense because like, oh, it's an athlete. He's a local athlete. He is kind of famous. Um, so like he has a little bit more of a connection than Cap Calloway. This last man, like,
Go ahead.
if you gave me 50,000 guesses on who this third boxing judge could be, I would not be able to guess that it was G. Gordon Liddy, who, of course, was one of the people who was responsible for breaking into the Watergate Hotel uh, and was part of the Watergate scandal. And I imagine he was, a household name still, even though Watergate was 14 years prior to this WrestleMania. Um, and everything like that. But like, it's just like what an eclectic pair of people we have to be the judges. We have Cap Calloway, a jazz big band leader from the 40s, Doctor or Chocolate Thunder, Daryl Dawkins, and of course Watergate uh,
Participant, as I call
participant
them.
G. Gordon. Like that's so they announce him
Like
as Watergate participant.
no, that's just what I wrote. I just called him a Watergate participant, like he was in the Andre Battle Royal.
Yeah. Did they announce? Did they announce like why he's there? Because he's not like a famous like Cab Calloway and Daryl Dawkins are like celebrities. You can say what they did. Do they announce what George G. Gordon Liddy's like claim to fame is? They say like former FBI agent.
I think they just said G. Gordon Liddy.
Yeah, and like, oh, of course, G. Gordon Liddy.
And of
He's got
course, Joan Rivers was the person announcing all of these people as the guest ring announcer.
oh yeah, of course.
And then we had our special guest timekeeper, Herb from the Burger King campaign as the guy who had never eaten a Whopper.
Oh, is it this was must be a memorable ad campaign from the 80s that I'm unfamiliar with.
Well, according to the Wikipedia page, by the time his appearance was revealed, many people had already lost interest in the campaign. The promotion was poorly received.
Yeah, so it was like kind of like behind the times.
Absolute. Well, yeah, if Cab Calloway and G. Gordon Liddy, this guy was right on the pulse compared to those two.
I can't believe these. I can't believe these are the judges for the show. Why? It's the combination. Like again, Daryl Dawkins almost stands out because it's relatively normal, but the combination of Cab Calloway and G. Gordon Liddy, like, what kind of fucking Mad Lib like answer is this? It ends in a DQ, so the judges don't even matter. They could just get boxers.
Absolutely.
Joe Frazier's in Mr. T's corner. But
Yeah,
why couldn't this just be three famous boxers?
that's a great thought. That's a great thought. Uh, So
Wow.
that's one of the terrible
Yeah.
ones. My next dud wouldn't come until WrestleMania 6. And unfortunately, I had to do it to him in his one and only WrestleMania match. Dusty Rhodes and Sweet Sapphire versus Randy Savage and Queen Sherry. This sucked.
And it like offends you, right?
Yeah, dud is where it's just like, come on, what are we doing? Like it's got to be like offensively bad for me to be like, all right, to go lower than a 1 is like, it's tough. And this one was tough.
And the thing about that, which is classic, like Vince McMahon is actually really bad at booking, example, which is like, if you just take this from a talent perspective and you give kind of anyone that's a wrestling fan the book, and you're like, all right, we got to get to WrestleMania. We have Dusty Rhodes on one side and then Randy Savage on the other. How can we like make this interesting or exciting? Like it should just be a complete layup.
Yeah,
And instead, they just choose the dumbest possible way to go about it. That's mainly built around trying to humiliate Dusty Rhodes.
and like it's a bunch of gaga basically built around, hey, Miss Elizabeth's here. And she's in Dusty's corner instead of Macho Man's. He was
It's like Paul Heyman is
the
in CM
surprise.
Punk. Paul Heyman's in CM Punk's corner and not Roman Reigns.
Well, hey, he owes Seth Rollins a favor now, so there you go. There's your intrigue.
Yeah, but if you just think about like Dusty Rhodes and Randy Savage, like Randy Savage is the heel, Dusty Rhodes is the babyface. Just have them cut promos against each other. Maybe do one like beatdown angle, and you probably have a really hot WrestleMania match. Now,
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes at this stage of his career, are you going to get like a 5-star match out of him? Probably not.
No,
There's no you can, but the story should be very, very easy to put together. These are the two of the most biggest stars, most charismatic men in wrestling from the past 10 years, and the fact that what they got out of it is this weird like war over the valets and Miss Elizabeth, and again, basically trying to humiliate Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, you got Dusty Rhodes and Randy Savage. Here's a random woman. Here's Sapphire. There you go.
Yeah, what was Sapphire's like background?
I don't like. She wasn't a wrestler. Like I
Yeah,
looked it up.
like
It's like she was
so
just a woman who, I don't know. I guess she liked Dusty.
now I'm curious, like, how did she like end up in this role? She was a big wrestling fan. She once wrestled a bear. I guess she did do some wrestling beforehand. She was a referee in Missouri. I don't know. I'm not. This is too much time. Yeah,
wasn't great. Regardless,
whatever
experience she had, it didn't help her out at all.
But she's like literally just like a random person.
Yeah, pretty much as close as you can get.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm trying to think what. So the ones that come to mind right away for like really bad matches.
Let's see if you can knock some out.
So that was that Cole Lawler match that we already talked about. The boxing match I would have brought up as being awful. A lot of people would say to me it's not as bad as like this level matches, but a lot of people would point to the Giant Gonzalez Undertaker match.
I did not give that one a dud. What did I give that one? Half a star, so as low as you can go.
But that's probably like appropriate though, because like it's obviously not a good match. There's not like a ton of action, but in terms of like what it was supposed to be, which is like this guy is freakishly large, and like look, he's gonna stand next to the Undertaker, and they're gonna do kind of a BS finish to kind of which set up a longer feud. Like I think it accomplishes its goals in a way some of these other matches do not.
Yeah, I think I gave it a half star because like the people popped for Taker, like doing a like comeback after the DQ. So I think I gave it like, all right, at least the crowd popped, but like other than that, it is horrendous.
It also has a terrible finish where Giant Gonzalez uses like chloroform to like
an ether rag from Dr. Harvey Whippleman.
And like the whole angle, right, is like Giant Gonzalez is Giant Gonzalez, and he's allegedly 8 feet tall, but he's like clearly like way bigger than the Undertaker. Why can't he just be that he beats up the Undertaker because he's enormous? Instead, he defeats the Undertaker in like the way like in like a way that like I would defeat the Undertaker if I had.
I never thought of that. He's 8 feet tall using an ether rag.
Like, and the idea is supposed to be like, oh, I don't know if the Undertaker can beat this guy because he's such a giant, and it's like, or he can like cheat the way like Danny Davis would if he was wrestling the Undertaker. Like, it's such a backwards
Wow.
booking. Another one that's definitely up there. I mean, I knew Dave's ratings were different when he refused to rate this match because to me this is easy, like -5 stars. Is the Pat McAfee Vince McMahon match?
I didn't rate that one either.
It's a match. We should be rating these things, Suit.
I gave it the no rating because it was all build up for Austin. It sucked, but I just didn't feel like I wasn't that worked up over it. It sucked, but it was like, all right, we're doing the Austin thing. All right.
Yeah, I'm sad that it is under 5 minutes, so it does not have a rating on Cage Match.
They got close. Vince was dawdling around
Yeah.
that ring in his vest, in his t-shirt, just
Yeah.
man.
And they also
You
just
really-
had the best is they have Pat McAfee go over Austin Theory, who's this guy that they allegedly
Yes.
have like plans for, and then they have immediately right after that, like have to have like Pat McAfee then like sell for like Vince McMahon, who maybe had a stroke in the middle of the match.
doing these terrible clotheslines and McAfee's just bumping for him.
Yeah, it's a
Like-
yeah, that one. I mean, that one I get why you didn't rate it.
Yeah, if I did, I more than likely would have gone dud. So I'll give you that one,
Yeah,
even though
because
that
it's
one's
but it's not like a real.
official.
It's
On the
not like
list.
necessarily like a real match.
Yeah.
There's other
What's
weird
some other
like,
ones?
WrestleMania is full of like a lot of weird, just like kind of matches, kind of like that one where you're like, I don't really know what to make of this because it's like a lot of non-wrestler participants. There's like the Big Show Akibono
Yeah,
sumo match.
I don't know what that was for because Akibono, like I knew he like worked in All Japan and stuff, and he was like a Triple Crown champ. That came after this, so he was just a shoot sumo that came in and was just, we'll do a sumo match. Why not? It's WrestleMania.
Yeah,
Like
I think like Vince
what?
was.
What is this for?
I think it was to pop Vince like the comedy of seeing Big Show come out in the sumo outfit is I think kind of
Yeah,
the point for it. And
there
also
was the gasp when they took their robes off was very funny.
yeah, and the idea was like let's just have these like really big guys fight each other, which is like sounds like a basic tenet of pro wrestling, but in a way that's like not pro wrestling.
It was kind of fun because there's the one spot where like Big Show lifts Akibono up by the thing, and then Akibono like hip tosses him
It's like
out.
it's like a real match in terms of like what they work towards. Like it's only
Yeah,
like a minute or two long, but the idea is like you see Big Show lift up this guy that weighs like a shoot 500 pounds, but he loses, but he really only loses because he has like no experience doing this thing.
right. It's like it's pointless, but it's also like fun and inoffensive. So yeah, I wouldn't go with that one as like a dud. I went 1 star on that one, but it was what it was.
And another memorable bad one, another Vince special, Vince versus Bret Hart, no holds barred.
Now this one really should be a dud, but I didn't want to do it to Brett, so I went 1/4 of 1 star, 0.25, just because like I didn't want to stick a dud by Bret Hart's name. Like that really shouldn't have counted. But that was really stupid, man. That was really bad.
Yeah,
And
so
like way too long because Brett had like had a stroke for like he had a stroke like 10 years prior, so he couldn't do anything.
yeah,
So it is
Bret
just
can't take
him.
any bumps, and he can't really do anything. See, part of the issue with this match, and part of the issue is why one of the reasons it felt so bad in particular was because a few years prior to this at WrestleMania 22, Vince
Yes.
McMahon has the match with Shawn Michaels, which is
And
a no DQ.
which everybody thinks Brett's gonna show up because he's getting inducted in the Hall of Fame. By the
Right.
way, that one's this it might be my hottest take ever. That's a better match than Angle Michaels.
Okay, well, that's I would obviously disagree with that, but that's a, like kind of a memorably good match. Like, and it's
Yeah,
really
like
just like Sean beats the shit out of Vince. That's literally what it is. It's like
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
it's yeah, it's fun. Um, and then so it's like, oh, okay, Bret Hart versus Vince. Maybe they can do something similar to what they did with Sean versus Vince. But like obviously Bret at that point can't really do anything physically while Sean was still an extremely physically capable wrestler. And uh it's just a disaster. It's overbooked. It's
They
the
do the
Hart
swerve.
family. Yeah.
Yeah, they do the swerve there, and then they do a double swerve because they're actually on Brett's side, and
Yeah,
then
because they all got paid up front. They're ultimate carnies, the Hart family in en masse. They worked
it's
both guys.
like like it's way too long. Like, do you see how long that match is in front of you?
It
Like,
says
do you
it's
have it?
11 minutes, but in my mind it's
Yeah,
like 30
man.
minutes. It's like the Cole Lawler match.
It's so it's all just Brett beating up on Vince with gimmicks, and it's like you can do this in half the time. Just do the heart attack with Tyson Kidd and a baby bulldog, and then have Brett hit him with a chair a couple times and get out of there in 5 minutes. Why did that match bell to bell need to be 11 minutes? Like, that made no sense.
Yeah. And I guess we'll wrap up the unless you have any extra ones to talk
Well,
about
I
with
have
the
some more. I will give you one name, and I think you'll be able to think of a couple.
well, I was gonna
Rand.
sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna point out the wait, is that WrestleMania? No, is the kennel? No, the kennel from Hell match isn't
No,
WrestleMania, right? I'm
that's like an
confusing.
Unforgiven,
Yeah, I'm confusing that with the bad Undertaker versus Big Boss Man Hell in a Cell match.
which is terrible. I'll give you one name, and you should be able to pop up a couple in your head. Randy Orton.
Oh yeah. Well, he has the match against Bray Wyatt.
Both
Um,
of them.
yeah, he has
They're
two.
both duds.
He has the bug match and he has the box like structure match.
Yes. Where both times he just loses to an RKO. His diamond cutter variant is enough to beat this spooky man.
Um, yeah, and he also has the match against Edge, the
Oh
walk and
boy.
brawl.
If you
So did they get a pass for that?
No, no, not at all. Why do you think why would they? Let me ask like your theory behind why.
Just for the walk and brawl at WrestleMania 36. Um, we're talking, you know, really it's at the performance center, no crowd, no real noise, um, no kind of nothing going on in it. Um, it's way too long, but I understand it's like just like I feel like everyone was just experimenting with shit during that time period.
It's violently long. Look, there are two the Becky Lynch Shayna Baszler match and the Charlotte Rhea Ripley match. Those matches were like really good, and like those were the matches of the night, and those two just went out there and hit each other. So
Yeah,
it's like they figured it out. Meanwhile, you two gave us a tour of the performance center
two of the
for
smartest and
40 minutes.
two of the smartest, most professional wrestlers of all time, Randy
And
Orton.
then we had this just then we had the NXT finish of like, you're not this person, Edge, don't do it with the concerto. And it's like, oh, go to hell.
Yeah,
All he
look,
is.
I won't defend that match like from a content perspective. I'm just saying, like in terms of like we're talking about the worst of the worst. And I do never want to watch that match ever again, and I know it's really bad, but I kind of want to give them a pass in terms of just the overall because I think everyone was trying to experiment with shit.
I will not be doing that. Cause
But
cause like I get like the experimental like thing about it, but like look, other people figured it out and you two didn't to a shocking degree.
how like depressing was watching those two WrestleManias without the crowd in like no ambient noise whatsoever.
It started off bad. Like the first match was Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross versus the Asuka and Kairi Sane. I don't remember their team name, but like after
The
that, I
Kabuki
kind
Warriors.
yeah, that sounds right. I think that's right. After that though, I did kind of get used to it, like because it wasn't that far back, and then there were a couple matches where you're kind of like, okay, they're hitting each other hard, they're filling the noise up themselves, kind of. So I got used to it. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be going in, but that Edge Orton match, that sank to depths I didn't even think it could. It was as depressing as an empty building match can be, while also being as bad as a match can be.
Yeah, I mean that Mania has some really weird. I mean, again, it's a totally unique Mania in terms of it just has some weird stuff going on. There's stuff that like I'm looking through the card now and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this like ladder match between John Morrison, Jimmy Uso, and Kofi Kingston. I remember the Kevin Owens Seth Rollins match. Like I'm like, yeah, this actually wasn't that bad. Like there's some entertaining stuff going on. But I remember they do the one on night one, they do Braun Strowman versus Goldberg, which is like a 3-minute match where Braun Strowman hits his finisher a few times and they win. And Strowman kind of gets that match because Roman Reigns was supposed to have that match. Roman
And he
Reigns
pulled out.
pulls out, and then Braun Strowman just kind of gets it and wins the title that way. And then they do the main event of night two. Is the Drew McIntyre Brock Lesnar match, which has like the exact same layout,
Yeah, it's
like
the
almost
same
down
thing.
to a T, which is like again a 3-minute match. Drew McIntyre hits his finisher and wins, and I was just like, "What the hell is that?" Like,
Like,
I
look,
just
I like those matches because I like Goldberg and I like Brock Lesnar. Like, so I
but you
thought,
do the same two title changes because I feel like they would have done that almost even if they did had a WrestleMania full of 70,000 people.
here's the thing: like those two, you think they're taking that many bumps in an empty building? They're like, look, I get it, not your fault. Let's just get the fuck out of here in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
All
Okay, so
right.
you're giving them a pass.
I'm saying, like, what do you expect from Brock Lesnar? Like in an empty building? Like, come on. Come on.
There's also the Firefly Funhouse match, which I assume is probably really bad if you rewatch it.
To this day, it is the only WrestleMania match I didn't watch. I told
Wow.
people, look, I watched the Boneyard match. I didn't have my arms crossed. Like it was fun, but it's also like this isn't a wrestling match, so I can't really like rate it. And then I didn't like any of Bray Wyatt's stuff like at the time or rewatching it, so I just know like I'm not gonna like this. So if you want me to watch it, pay me. Like I have my match request series. You pay me $5, I watch any match you watch, any match you want. If you want me to watch the Firefly Funhouse, it's
I don't
that
like that
bad.
you didn't
Pay up.
complete this. I mean, there's gotta that's the I mean, you watched the Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole match. I'd rather watch the Firefly Funhouse match than that. At least the Firefly
Yeah.
Funhouse match is like randomly chaotic in like a crazy way, like the as opposed to being boring me to tears.
Well, hey, you can watch it on jessecollings.com. But let me hit these other duds real quick, and then uh we can move on to whatever you got next. I got Yokozuna Lex Luger from WrestleMania 10, the first WWF title match of the night. How's four trapezius holds sound? Not great.
I don't know. I watch a lot of Saito brother matches these days.
You have the twofer from WrestleMania 12. You have the Hollywood Backlot Brawl with Roddy Piper and Goldust. And
Yeah,
then
that's
you have Steve Austin versus Savio Vega, which was ruined by Roddy Piper versus Goldust.
yeah. So you have like
Because
those two matches, right? They're parodying the
the OJ
OJ
chase.
chase a few years after it happened. But hey, they were in Los Angeles, so they needed to do that.
And Austin and Vega are having this full-on background match as this Roddy Piper Goldust bit is going. And it's the worst Steve Austin match you'll ever see. And then Roddy Piper and Goldust get to the building after the car chase, and it is Roddy Piper either being homophobic or really gay, and I don't even think he knew. But yeah, it was terrible. So
Yeah, that match on Cage Match
uh,
has a 10 rating and 2 0 ratings.
I will fix that very soon. I
Uh,
actually might be one of those
It's
zeros.
too late. It's too late soon because you're one of the zeros. I'm looking at number. The
Yes,
rating
there
right at
it
the top
is.
is 00 Suit Williams from
I
April 8th.
Yeah, I did just put it on my Mania ratings there.
Yeah.
Mania. Real quick, just a couple more.
Yeah.
Terry versus the Cat from WrestleMania 2000.
Yeah, there's some awful women's matches that we never should think about ever again.
The Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal, won by a man. And then the Orton matches, and then Finn Balor versus Edge, the Hell in a Cell, where they wrapped everything up, where they had to stop it because Finn got a boo boo, and then
Well,
of
he
course,
didn't get a normal boo boo.
yeah, he got a pretty bad cut, but it's Hell in a Cell. And then Jimmy versus Jay, the Usos from last year, still bad.
Yeah, and
And
that's
that's
one of
all
those
the
classic underachieving matches.
yeah.
On a more positive note, what WrestleMania do you feel like was the best?
Oh, that's a good one. There's some WrestleManias that like WrestleMania 14, there's not like a standout match, but the vibes are incredible. Like it's everything feels good. And like the last two matches are like it's Undertaker versus Kane in a match that's way too long. And then it's Austin versus Shawn Michaels with a broken back. So it's like that's tough, but it's also like, yeah, the show still got this really good energy to it. WrestleMania 19, that's a great one. WrestleMania 17 is also very good. Um, the WrestleMania 38. There are nights of WrestleMania from recently that are very good. Because one thing I realized is WWE, they don't really have the horses to do two nights of WrestleMania. So there'll be one much better night than the other. WrestleMania 38 Saturday. That's the one with Cody showing up and Austin having the match with Kevin Owens, and the really great Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey match that I would ask people, go back and check that one out. It's a lot better than you think it is. And then WrestleMania 39 night one with Owens and Zayn versus the Usos on top. What else was on that show? As I
Pat
scroll
McAfee
down.
versus The Miz.
Well, yeah, no
That has
rating on that one.
that has the very good Rhea Ripley Charlotte match.
Yes, and then there's that really cool tag match, that four-way tag with all the guys just going crazy, and then you got Rollins and Logan Paul going out there having a really good one.
John Cena, Kurt Jerkin doing the job to Austin Theory. They really made the most out of Austin Theory with that win too.
Yeah, that match sucked. John, like I talk about it in the review coming up, but there's a theory that John Cena is like he's doing this retirement tour so they stop calling him. And like this match made me believe that theory because he really did not want to be out there.
Yeah, his heart is not into that whole feud. And
But
like really, that has to do with like a more fundamental issue, which is like bringing John Cena back and having him do a job to a young star on the rise is a good use of John Cena, but you have to have that young star on the rise, and Austin Theory ain't it.
Yeah, he wasn't that guy. Never gonna be that guy.
Yeah, honestly, it's a tough question when I think of it myself. Like, I don't think in its history there's a WrestleMania show where I feel like it's like straight fire or it has like 5 amazing matches on it.
Yeah. I
There's
would though. I like Mania 19 is like a stretch of like everything's at least 4 stars for like the last 5 matches or something.
Yeah,
Which is
I think that depends on
crazy long.
yeah, I would definitely say WrestleMania 19 is probably my favorite WrestleMania. It's either that one or 21, I would say.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 19, like it depends. Like some people don't like that Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle match.
I think it's I think it's sick that Kurt Angle like had a broken neck and was like, you know what? We're just gonna have the great main event.
Yeah, and Brock does
He
the
had
shooting
too,
star where he lands on his head and
like he had too much pride to be like, no, I'm not going out. Like we're not working in like we're not doing an angle. I'm having a main event. Like
Yeah, it had the
Sure.
Shawn Michaels Jericho match, which is like one of the best WrestleMania
Oh,
matches of all time.
I adore that match.
Yeah,
Like
it's a great
I
match.
hadn't seen it for whatever reason. I hadn't seen it until doing this, and
Yeah.
it's phenomenal.
It's maybe the best match of Jericho's career.
I'd put it up there.
Yeah, it's really high up there. Yeah, that's a good one. WrestleMania 17. Part of me lives in like I'm tired of living in the annoying Attitude Era world where like all the Attitude Era fans are like, "Oh, that's the best WrestleMania of all time."
It's the easy answer.
There's a lot of shit on that show I don't like though.
Yeah, like Eddie Guerrero versus Test. You know,
I don't like the
it
Shane
is
and
what it
Vince.
is.
I don't like the Shane and Vince match. I think it's super dumb. I know it's like super over with the crowd, but the whole like Linda McMahon is Katonic.
Catatonic.
Yeah, like that. That's not for me. Like I hate it. And I know she stands up and gets like the Road Warrior pop and everything like that. And like I guess if the rule is if something's really over, it has to be good. Then that's the case. But I just really dislike that match. I don't really like the main event either. I know that's like a match people love too. Um, I just think the finish is dumb. Um,
Yeah, the finish takes too long to come together. I really like that match. It's easily the best of the three.
yeah, see, I
Like
think the WrestleMania 19 match is almost better.
I like the 19 match too. Like the WrestleMania 15 match, I think I'm lower on that than I think other people would be. Like I think that's like a 2-star match.
Mhm.
But like the other two, I hold in pretty high regard.
I do like the gimmick battle royal. I think they should do that again.
Yeah, that's fun, but like it kind of gets to like the Hall of Fame point where it's like you're kind of running out of people, and then Iron Sheik wins because he can't bump.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's like,
awesome. He wins because he can't take the bump over the top rope.
what a carny.
Like, I just want to see a combination of like memorable old gimmicks and like just gimmicks that like everyone forgot about, but they randomly bring them out. Like, I think that would get a really positive response from the WWE fan base if they did a gimmick battle royal and it was just like random gimmicks, like, oh, here's Simon Dean, he's coming out. Like, not even legends, just like random people if they're still alive from like the wacky era of
Yeah,
gimmicks
like
and stuff like that.
Fandango was on NXT a couple weeks ago. You could do him. You could get a pop for that guy. Tyler Breeze too. I'm sure he's still in ring shape,
Yeah,
at
like
least for a battle royal.
they had the Goon, the Repo Man,
Yeah,
Kimchi,
you got a few of these guys you can bring back.
Earthquake, who lost a lot of weight at that point, so he wasn't
Yeah,
quite quakey.
that was that was around the time he had like a random like tryout match, and like I think it was '02 they were thinking about bringing him back because he was only like 40.
Ah,
So
he would have been under 40, he would have been like 38.
yeah, that guy was like, I mean, talk about guys who have looked old forever. Earthquake was in like his
Yeah, he
20s
would have
in
been like
Turning
27 or
One.
28 during that like big run.
Yeah. LSU alumni Earthquake John Tenta.
Yeah,
Didn't know that.
he went to Japan. He was a yeah, he played football and was a wrestler at LSU, and then he went to Japan to train to be a sumo. But his Bengal tiger tattoo was a no-go in sumo because tattoos are
Mhm.
associated with the Yakuza, so he had to go find a different career, and that's how he ended up in pro wrestling.
What a life that guy had.
Yeah, he was only 42 when he died. Going into the Hall of Fame, right? Is he already in the Hall, or the natural disasters are going into the WWE Hall of Fame, but Earthquake himself was not already in the Hall of Fame?
I assume everybody is. Like they're having to induct matches now.
Yeah.
So I just assume they're out of people. But you wanna talk about this year's Mania a little bit?
Yeah,
To
we
kind
can.
of to maybe put a bow on it or whatever. Like I can
I'm
keep going if you want, but
yeah. Let me ask, like, can we talk about Roman real quick?
yeah, we can.
What did you discover about Roman Reigns during this watch along?
Man, Roman Reigns does not do very much during these matches. It was it got to a point where it was shocking to me, like how dependent on his opponent Roman was during like the first run of his like career. Like
Mhm.
when he turned heel, he did a little more, and then the Cody match at 39 is by far his most complete performance. Like top to bottom, the work he does adds to the match as well. But like from 31 to 35, and most of these he's main eventing, that match depends on what the other guy is bringing. Because if it's not selling, hitting a Superman punch or hitting a spear, Roman ain't doing nothing.
Yeah, I think like the conventional thought around Roman's career is like he was a good worker when he was a babyface. Maybe not right when he debuted, but by the time he's getting like the big singles push, he is a good to very good in-ring wrestler. He just
Yeah,
there wasn't that connection with the fan base that need to be, and the fans were kind of frustrated with him being pushed super hard. So, but like in terms of like his actual bell-to-bell capacity, I feel like he's pretty highly regarded, or at least well regarded. And then when he's been a heel, I would argue that like people are kind of like, oh, he's not nearly, he's not that much of a worker anymore, but it's part of his heel gimmick. But when he was a babyface, he was a good worker. And you kind of really dispute that in your reviews in terms of what you've seen from him, which is like and we talked about some of the matches here. There are just some of these matches when he's a babyface that are just absolutely not good. They're too long, and he just isn't a dynamic in-ring performer. And I think that's reflected in some of these matches, really underachieving. Not just that the crowd rejected him, because I got in arguments at the time about that,
yeah,
which is there is to me like a misremembered aspect of history, which is that like Roman Reigns was rejected by the fans because the fans really wanted Daniel Bryan, and instead they pushed Roman Reigns, and the fans got mad because they wanted Daniel Bryan. That is not what happened. What happened was the fans wanted Daniel Bryan, and they did not want Roman Reigns.
yes,
He
it
was
was
not.
both.
He was not over, and people were not engaged by his performances. If they were, they still probably would have been mad about Daniel Bryan, but they would have accepted it the way they accepted Seth Rollins when Rollins got involved at WrestleMania 31. Right? People
Yeah,
cheered when Seth Rollins came out. People cheered when Seth Rollins won the title. Right? There was this whole idea, and that was because they at least respected Seth's work in a way that they did not respect Roman's work. They didn't boo Seth and wish it was Daniel Bryan. So the idea that like it had to be Daniel Bryan or anyone was going to get booed, I think is totally not true. I think that's total bullshit.
yeah,
The problem was Roman wasn't ready for that spot. He wasn't dynamic or interesting enough, and he didn't connect with the crowd enough at that time. And that's what led to him being rejected.
right. Go back and watch the Brock match. The Brock match is great, but and I'm not saying selling's easy. Like Roman, he got his ass kicked by Brock Lesnar a bunch, but all he did in that match was sell and hit the two moves that he knew would get a pop, like the Superman punch and the spear. And then WrestleMania 32 against Triple H in that terrible main event. It's Triple H getting himself over, and all Roman does is sell, hit the Superman punch, hit the spear. Like, you go to Taker Roman Reigns. Like, Taker does a lot more than I remember him doing. Roman doesn't. Like, it's shocking to me. Like, just like the reputation I had in my mind of Roman being this, he worked hard, he did stuff, and like I think he put effort in, but I just don't think he knew I don't think he knew what to do in these certain spots.
Like he didn't know how to put together a big match.
Right. All
Which
he
makes sense.
had.
Which makes sense because his whole like his whole wrestling career is him being like a programmed robot, where he had been pushed into this persona of the generic top babyface. And he
Yeah.
had been groomed for this, and they were always so protective of him, and as they were building him up for this spot. But he never really got the kind of educational experience necessary to succeed in like these kind of big spots and know what to do in the way that like a veteran wrestler would.
Yeah, and then it's like what worked in the Shield was he would come in at the end, hit his big moves and win, but he never calibrated that to working as a main event singles guy. So like people rip John Cena for having 5 moves of doom. Roman didn't even have 5 moves. Like if I counted the like drive-by drop kick, which is the one that he does in the ropes.
Yep.
And then there was like a jumping clothesline he would do. I'm at 4. I don't think like before the Cody match, I don't think there's anything he did outside of those 4 moves. Like, and I know like moves don't make a match great, but like he was not adding anything to these matches. It was
And-
all his opponent.
And they're all like
Like-
30 minutes long.
Yeah, it all went where his opponent could get them to. And if, you're Drew McIntyre in the middle of a show, or if you're, a past peak Undertaker, you're not getting that high. Or if you're a Triple H, not interested in getting him over, but more getting yourself over.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it a lot. It upsets me greatly that he got voted into the Hall of Fame, the Observer Hall of Fame. And one of the main reasons I have that is that I don't think his lack of in-ring was held against him enough.
Yeah,
I feel like it was hand-waved at best.
I agree.
People are like, whatever. He's fine in ring, but like to me, it's like no, this guy's a below average in ring performer, so he is not getting that check from the criteria. And I feel like a lot of people just kind of hand waved and said like, he's fine, that's fine, whatever. He's not like gonna get in because he's one of the greatest workers of all time. But I think people generally thought he was a good worker, and I just don't see the evidence for that throughout his career.
And now we're going to have to consider Jey Uso for this Hall of Fame. And
I don't have to consider Jey Uso.
We don't, but people will. We will have to hear people do that because he's a WWE quote unquote main eventer. And so he will get credit for these, 50,000 seat houses.
Do you have a ballot?
I don't know.
We should get you a ballot. That should be corrected.
Oh, hey, the more I watch, the more credible I will be.
No, you're already much more credible than the. I mean, I need to recruit people that would have kept Roman Reigns out of the Hall of Fame. So I'm gonna start like gerrymandering. I want to get my votes into the Hall of Fame, so I need people on my side. Yeah, I mean, this year's Mania, I don't really have like a ton of takes just because I feel like it hasn't been a particularly dynamic build.
Yeah.
For this year's show, I think that the John Cena heel turn has turned out I expected it to kind of go one of two ways, which is it was either going to be like really, really engaging and like kind of incredible performances that would make me even want to like tune in and watch Raw, or it was going to be kind of a shrug of the shoulders. My heart's not really into it, but might as well do this because that's kind of the way John Cena's performances have been over the last few years. And I definitely think we're getting the latter than we were getting the former.
I think what doesn't help is the fact that there's like this whole thing seems to be part of the Paul Levesque, Dwayne Johnson Cold War, where it's like The Rock's going to show up and make himself a part of this, but then Levesque's going to be like, nah, you don't have to bring him up if you don't want to. Like, he's not going to try and thread The Rock's needles for him.
Yeah, like the best part of this angle, the best version of this angle is like The Rock and John Cena are like backstage causing chaos and like beating people up and leaving Cody into a bloody heap and like that on episodes of Raw and SmackDown. But instead we basically got like this weird tour of like different European cities where John Cena kind of cut the same promo. It's also just a weird time for John Cena to be being a heel just because, and I know this has been talked by a lot of different people, so I'm not breaking new ground here, but like the era of like Cena sucks and the divided audiences has kind of subsided. That was something that was much more interesting in like 2011 or 2012 when Cena was still an everyday presence and the company really needed a jolt, and Cena had been grown really stale as a babyface and it was probably time for him to turn heel. That was the exciting part for me. But at this point, it's like, okay, he's on his retirement tour. Nobody's booing this guy on his retirement tour. Nobody's really seriously booed him outside of like a wink, wink. Oh yeah, you're supposed to boo John Cena kind of way in a long time. And now we're supposed to believe that now is like it's just not a good time for him to turn heel, even though it is like obviously there's some like morbid curiosity because he's never been a heel as a top star before.
I think it would have been interesting to do like after this show, like if you set it up here. Like I remember reading somewhere, it may have been the Observer,
Mhm.
but that the plan was for Cena to turn heel either at this show or after WrestleMania to like run through some of his dates as a heel after that point, and then the Rock deal kind of pushed it forward because Cody didn't want to turn, and Rock wanted to involve himself somehow. So, like I think as an overarching thing for this WrestleMania is people kind of like the worm turning on Paul Levesque, and I think it all starts, and I'll die on this hill. I think it all starts with him not belting up Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 39. I don't know if that was him or Vince at that point, but it I think Vince was back at that point, but I think if he wanted to belt up Cody, he could have talked somebody into it. It's Paul Levesque,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I keep waiting for like kind of like people to get sick of Levesque's booking.
it's
Um,
coming, man. You feel it. You feel it with people who are more like WWE,
yeah,
tolerant than we are.
I
But
keep waiting for that to happen, and I just don't. People are more resistant to that. I definitely get the sense from this WrestleMania build, even like pretty loyal WWE fans are like not really that excited about this WrestleMania, which is bad.
yeah, because there's a lot of people who had been built up for something over the past few years that just aren't getting anything. Like last year, it was Chad Gable. They were building up Chad Gable versus Gunther, and instead, Sami Zayn's the one that beats him, and they turn Chad heel. And now he's doing a Midnight Rider deal.
Yeah, it's to me, that's a very charitable way to describe his racist gimmick,
Yes,
but
it's a very nice way of
yeah.
putting it. You got
Um,
Drew McIntyre, who was in the feud of the year last year. Not mine, but in the general consensus feud of the year last year. And he's here in a match with Damian Priest that I don't know if anybody remembers this. Drew himself ran to like the dirt sheets to be like, this is a nothing match. And
yeah.
he took a few weeks off after the Rumble. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. Like, there was a Braun Breaker AJ Styles match getting built that they dropped instead for this four-way. Like,
Like I don't know. I was doing some research like last week, mainly because I was trying to figure out when the last time a black man had a singles match on a WWE show.
I think it was WrestleMania. Well, a singles match. A match in general would be WrestleMania 40, the Lashley and the Street Profits versus the Final Testament. I think singles match, you got to go back to Mania 39 with Omos
Yeah.
versus Brock Lesnar.
So Carmelo Hayes appeared at the Royal Rumble, which the
Yes,
last
he
time
was
a
on
black man had a match at all in WWE pay per view. And then
he was on the Saudi show.
yeah, he was on the Saudi show in a triple threat match, which he lost.
There
But
was
but anyway, yeah, we can get into that in a second if you want.
Yeah, there was a backlash, I think, with Omos on it too. The one in Puerto
The last
Rico.
black man to win a match on a singles
Well,
match in a WWE show is actually Snoop Dogg when he beat Shane McMahon at WrestleMania.
when he beat the Miz because
Or he
Shane
beat the
blew
Miz. Yeah, he beat the Miz because Shane blew out his ACL.
the
Um,
funniest moment in WrestleMania
yeah.
history.
So, but anyway, I was going through like the last PLE cards, like in order, like going on Wikipedia and being like, okay, that was PLE card. What was the one before that? And just like the lack of churn that we see. It's like there are these 5 match cards, and it's kind of just a combination of the same different people spread out across 5 or 6 matches on these cards. It's a
Yeah.
lot of the same feuds. Like Bianca Belair's wrestling Io Sky. I know the feud is a little bit different, but like she's been feuding with Io Sky in some form for like 3 years. I swear.
Yes, Bianca and Damage Control, and then now they're doing this three-way with EO and Rhea Ripley, where somehow everybody looks like an asshole. So
Yeah,
great job there.
it's just like a lot of this stupid stuff.
Hey, the New Day got booked.
The
So
New
reset
Day,
the counter.
yeah, reset the counter. Let's see if they win, which they might, I
Yep.
guess. Well, that whole angle with the Big E stuff was dropped. And speaking of dropped angles,
Yes. I
um,
mean, good lord. Like I don't want to do the imagine if AEW, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Imagine if AEW ran an angle with a guy who was injured and they thought he was gonna be cleared, but he wasn't. And so they kind of just dropped the angle.
sloppy shop.
Uh,
There's nothing. Honestly, there's nothing even on these two shows that I want to watch from like a perverse. I guess what will happen is if like I'm gonna hear like some of these matches will probably end up being really good, and I'll probably end up watching them after the fact. But there's nothing here that I'm like interested in. I guess the Reigns CM Punk Seth Rollins match could be kind of intriguing, just because I am kind of fascinated. Like I wonder like how much work Roman does in this match. Which my anticipation is not much, especially because it's a triple threat match.
eh.
Um, like Seth and CM Punk will work hard, but it's going to be mostly about Paul Heyman's face making. Like that might be enough to intrigue me, just because I think people are going to have really interesting reactions to that match. I think,
Yeah,
but
Punk treating that one like it's a main event when
yeah,
I
but everything else,
mean
like this Cody versus Cena match, like
you would never know this feud started with a bloody beatdown. Like it's just been them like talking and then Cody hit a crossroads.
yeah, and it's just like it's Cena going the route that he did, which is like it's the fans, you people turned on me, which is like kind of the same heel promo that Vince
Buddy,
McMahon's been writing for like 20 years.
all those people are either watching AEW or quit watching AEW. Like they're not here anymore.
Well, there's two things about the that kind of promo style that's really bothered me. The first is that um like well, it's not true, as you point out. Like that hasn't
Yeah.
really been the case for a few years. And then also just like it's the same kind of content that like a lot of recently turned heels have been using in WWE. It's the same heel promo that Vince McMahon's written for people for like the last 20 years, which is blame the fans for not supporting you.
It's
There's nothing unique about
right.
it being coming from John Cena, this lifelong babyface hero of that has no peers. Um, like there's nothing unique in it coming from John Cena. It's just like, oh, John Cena cut a heel promo, but it sounds like it could be being cut by like 20 different people on the roster. So that's a missed opportunity. And there's other aspect of it that just this is just something that's really like annoying for me to watch. And it's one of the reasons I'm just not connected with the WWE fans anymore, which is
Yeah.
like all the fans go there to do like the performative booing because they know they're supposed to boo John Cena because he's the heel now, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
a fun thing. So
Yeah.
he's getting heat, but he's getting like the heat where these people are kind of laughing and smiling and chanting the Cena sucks kind of thing. And it just feels like they're all in on some sort of joke, and it makes everything feel so performative and fake, which it really is because we also know that John Cena's not going to be a heel for that long.
I wouldn't be shocked if he turned back on this show.
Yeah,
Like if he
like
just
it's
shook Cody's hand.
and this is going to go down in history as some sort of like weird thing that me and you are going to be laughing about in like 10 or 15 years. Like, remember when John Cena was just a heel for like a month and then he wasn't for WrestleMania? Like, it's just,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like this is a purposeful thing that we're going to be talking about in 20 years, which it had the potential to be.
Yeah, it's just it feels really impersonal. There's the WWE like veneer over everything where it's like the first Cena appearance after the turn, they were in like Belgium or something, and they hit his music and split second
Yeah.
boo. It's like the split like they hit boo.mp3 for John Cena. And if you don't believe me that those are fake boos, you can hear the people in the building doing the John Cena sucks chant over the boo
The
sound.
uniform booing. Yeah. Yeah,
Like
it just makes everything feel fake in a way that like I feel like is subversive to pro wrestling in general.
yeah, it's just, it's the reality show kind of it's hard to explain, but it's just this, it's the WWE like sheen. It's like it's coding everything they do. This just feeling of like this is performative. Like there's nothing like real about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing real about it.
Yeah. So
And it's not great.
yeah. So I don't like have a ton to say about this build. Like it's funny you mentioned like Charlotte is like a slam dunk at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I like my take on Charlotte is like I think for the last few years her heart hasn't been in her. She doesn't want to be a professional wrestler anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we're watching her crash out just
And I
live
feel like
every
it's
week.
been the case for a while, and occasionally she might have a good match and turns it around. But you look at how much time she's missed for various reasons that we do and do not know about, and just like someone who's just not really prepared and their heart isn't into being a professional wrestler anymore. And I get
Yeah.
that people are interested in that match largely because the build has been such a weird disaster. People don't really know what to expect. I would say I guess it could be pretty good, but I don't know. And then there's like nothing else on this card that would excite me at all.
Yeah, Charlotte and Tiffany will be good if Charlotte wants it to be. They're probably gonna put Jacob Fatu over Strong here over LA Knight. I like the WWE is very weird with their pushes because like there are people who like they know like the company knows that's the guy, the fans agree with them, but they're gonna wait like 12 to 18 months to like actually go with them. Like we saw it with Cody, like he was the man when he walked in, he was the man when he tore his pec, and then he came back, wins the Rumble. Nah, we'll wait a year. And now Jacob Fatu is here, and he's like, everybody knows this is the guy, and instead we're just, I don't know. Here's LA Knight. Here's the US title. I don't know. Maybe we could have done that instead of having Shinsuke Nakamura have it for 4 months while he's doing the great Kabuki gimmick. Like, I don't know. It's just weird that sometimes there are these guys that pop off the screen and they're just like, because it's Hunter and this is his booking, he just doesn't do anything swift. He doesn't catch the lightning in a bottle. He's like always for the long play, and sometimes you end up on the back end of the hill when you were at the top of it.
All right, gonna wrap things up here. Suit, do you got anything else you want to add? Any plugs?
Yeah, suitwilliams.com. Williams watches WrestleMania. We are I'm going to be completing that in time for WrestleMania this year. The plan is to do live reviews. I think I will be able to do them for both shows. So check suitwilliams.com out for that. There is also my match request series where for $5 I'll review any match you give me. I've got a couple. Well, I've got one that's coming up. I just did Okada Omega 3. So if you want to check that out, you can. And then I think I will. You know what? I'm gonna drop my next. I'll announce my next project right now. I'll give you an exclusive here on the Gentleman's Wrestling Podcast. My next project after Williams Watches Wrestling will be it'll be titled As Good as It Gets, and that is a look at marquee matches throughout pro wrestling in the year of 1997. So yes, I used a very famous movie from 1997 as the title, As Good as It Gets. And yeah, we're gonna be getting different volumes. It'll be like big mixtapes. Oh, you go ahead.
I was hoping it would be a little bit more ironic, like you're gonna watch some bad shit.
No, no. I'm gonna stick with some good stuff. So yeah, it's from
Why
all over the
1997?
world. It's the year I was born, and it was the year of the pack I found on Extreme Wrestling Torrents. So
Well, no, it's a good year from like a global wrestling perspective in terms of what's going on in Mexico, what's going on in Japan, what's going on in the United States. So it's not. It's a
it's a very
year.
interesting year too. Like the first volume I have written and I have it scheduled for after WrestleMania. So first volume I've got, All Japan Women's. I got a Manami Toyota match. I've got a couple big matches from the Tokyo Dome. I've got a CMLL Tuesday night match with some minis. And then I got the 97 Royal Rumble. And that's volume 1. And, we're going to bounce around the world throughout the year. And I'll just keep going, couple weeks at a time through the year 1997. So it'll be a fun look. It's mostly stuff I haven't seen with some big stuff. We're going to get Brett versus Austin again. So I will happily watch that again. But that's going to be my next project, the 1997 year in review, we'll call it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Suit. I want to appreciate you for joining the show once again. Thanks to all my listeners, and we'll be talking to you again after a while. Bye-bye.
My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines, and we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, The Bad, and The Hungy every week on the Voice of Wrestling Network.